Welcome to the PTSD Bunker Gear for Your Brain podcast. Post-traumatic stress disorder is not a death sentence, yet a rite of passage to a higher level of tolerance. Stay with us and come out of the darkness as your host, Carl Waggett, shines a light on this very misunderstood disorder.
Welcome to PTSD, Bunker Gear for Your Brain. I'm your host, Carl Waggett, and welcome to episode 287. Guys, if this is the first time you've ever found us, it's very nice to meet you. My name is Carl, and this is a podcast about post-traumatic stress disorder. But guys, hey, hang on a sec. Now, we don't get real medical around here. No, we look at things through the eyes of the emergency services, which is police, fire, ambulance, and dispatch, as well as correctionals and Coast Guard, because they're not easy gigs at all. And guys, I think it goes without saying military, right? But guys, listen, hold on a second. If you guys don't fill into these lines of work, or you don't work in these lines of work at all, hey, it doesn't mean you have to leave the podcast. No, we're learning more and more about this PTSD, depression, anxiety, and it's amazing the number of people this can affect. So no, hang out with us. It's all cool. So for those of you who do join in from time to time, guys, as always, Fabu to see a familiar face. Shall we get on with the show? Let's do this. So look, we're kind of carrying on from last week's episode of this whole New Year's resolution and why sometimes these things are hard to get a handle on. But you know, once we understand how these things work and once we understand how our mind adopts change, well guys, listen, the sky's the limit. You can pretty much do anything you want. But this particular week, guys, we've been looking about how the brain plays silly buggers. Yeah, and it's not that it plays silly buggers with you. It's just the problem is that when PTSD, depression, anxiety gets in there, well, it kind of messes with the operating system a little bit. You know what I'm getting at, right? You know, we kind of discussed about how the brain loves keeping the host or you in a pattern. Yeah, it does this because it likes to avoid pain, right? Because pain brings it closer to death. So listen, everything's kind of connected. But like I said, when this PTSD, depression, or anxiety jumps in there, well, guys, all of a sudden, a lot of things seem painful that really shouldn't. So the brain kind of gets confused a little bit, right? And unless we know what we're fighting here, guys, it seems like an unwinnable battle because, well, let's be honest, we can't get the gray matter on board with us. Guys, I laugh and I joke, but this is really scary. No, I'm serious. When you're looking in the mirror and you're going, okay, look, I'm sorry, I've got to make a change here. Something has to happen. But for some strange reason, we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. Guys, this frightened the holy shit out of me because, like I said, guys, as far as I was concerned, I was cursed. All right, so look, what are we going to take a look at in this episode? Well, guys, this is a fascinating subject because this is something that everybody deals with. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have PTSD, depression, or anxiety. What we're talking about this episode is the subject of fear. Now, this is something that our brain throws at us and makes us afraid of things because, well, quite frankly, wants to keep us safe. And guys, listen, I don't think this is a bad thing. No, I'm not poo-pooing fear at all. I'll tell you what, fear will keep you alive faster than anything. Look, if you happen to find yourself in a house fire and the floor's getting a little spongy, look, this is a good time to feel fear. Yeah, that's right. It's a message that your mind sends to you to say, hey, get the fuck out of the house, right? You know what I mean? Because without that fear, well, you would just keep wandering into the house and eventually go through the floor. Look, if you're out swimming in the ocean, I don't know, around 7 or 8 o'clock, and all of a sudden you get this really weird spidey sense that something isn't right, and you turn around and see a gigantic dorsal fin racing towards you, dude, feel fear. Yeah, no, that's all cool to feel it at that time because that fear is going to give you the adrenaline to get the fuck out of that situation that is scaring the holy shit out of us. Now, the problem comes, guys, is like I said, when this PTSD, depression, or anxiety gets involved. Because the problem is things get a little messed up. Yeah, you're right. You know, sometimes the information that we're taking in gets processed wrong, and all of a sudden, day-to-day life can seem frightening. Yeah, and look, I don't know a single person that wants to admit this, guys, including me. But you know what? For the purpose of this podcast, guys, I have to include this, right? Look, there were times that I used to feel absolutely terrified, but the problem is that the information that I was taking in, dude, it wasn't a scary situation. Look, I got a great example. Me and a couple of buddies from work once grabbed some Van Halen tickets down in Buffalo, right? So anyways, we get in the car and boom, off we go, right? Big exciting time. But let me tell you, when I get down to the hotel, right, and you know, we're checking in and you know, we're going out for a few drinks before the concert, I remember turning to my buddy and going, holy fuck, buddy, I'm terrified right now. And he looked at me, he goes, why? I said, well, look, just all these people around me and everything. And look, I didn't know anything about PTSD, depression, or anxiety back then, but the fact of the matter was, this feeling of fear was so overwhelming that I turned to my buddy next to me and said, look, dude, I'm freaking out and I don't know why. So fear can be extremely frightening when you don't know why you have it. And sometimes this is what happens to people with PTSD, depression, or anxiety, is that you'll look at a situation and you'll be fearful of it and you back away because that's the initial instinct. But guys, everybody knows this is not a situation to be scared of. Another great example, I went to a blues festival. Not that I'm a big blues guy, but Jackie's daughter, Charlotte, is incredible with a guitar. No, she really is. She's got a gift. There's no doubt. And the thing is she was playing in this blues festival. Well, anyways, there was, I don't know, like 300-400 people at this blues festival, and she was obviously younger, right? And they, it was what they were doing where they were having all the kids up on stage to play. It was nice. I liked it, right? But the thing was, inside this tent, dude, for some strange reason, I had this feeling this whole place was going to go up in flames. And I don't know why. Look, I had no reason to think this. It was a Saturday afternoon. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody's enjoying drinks and having a good time, and everybody's laughing. You know what? There's no problems or anything setting off the spidey senses. But for some strange reason in the back of my head, dude, I was petrified. And dude, I'm talking to the level of sweating here. Okay, you can't fake sweating. Okay, fine, you can get yourself worked up and whatnot, but when you start physically sweating, look, you're actually afraid. And this is something that I definitely felt that PTSD, depression, anxiety brought to the table, and it was something I wasn't ready for. It wasn't. As we said, the brain is always there to protect us, but the problem is when, the brain gets a little confused with this whole PTSD, depression, anxiety, it sends the wrong messages. And the problem is not only are you fighting PTSD, depression, anxiety, guys, you're fighting fear. Okay? And that's the scariest thing you can come up against. Okay? Because the problem is that you know how to scare you the best. Yeah, it's not like somebody else is trying to frighten you, okay? That's fine. They may not scare you, but trust me, when you're scaring yourself, trying to get yourself out of a situation, because that's really all the brain is doing, right? The brain, for some strange reason, is thinking, okay, this is a bad situation, and we need to get out of it. So what does it do? It dumps a whole bunch of adrenaline into your system to give you the energy to get out of there, but the problem is you're at a baby shower. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Why am I freaking out to get out of here? Why do I feel like I'm stood in a house fire when I'm just around friends and family? This is very, very confusing. But the problem is, guys, is fear is not something you can just ignore. Yeah, look, I don't care how tough you are, okay? If you are frightened, things don't move right. Think about this for a second. Think about any time that you've been really, really scared. Look, things move faster or slower than they should. Nothing seems to move quite right. One of the biggest times I remember in my life was when I went through my separation, And the thing is if you take security away from an individual, they'll go crazy. Like, seriously, if you take everything away, and I think this is why separations are so devastating. Never mind the fact that, your relationship has ended, but the problem is you don't know what the fuck's going on now. Okay, you don't know where you're going to live. You don't know where the kids are going to go to school. You don't know how you're going to live because of, either spousal or child support or whatever. It really doesn't matter. But the fact is all these things are entering your head and they're scaring the shit out of you. Now, the problem is when you get fearful like that, it's tough to make a move. Yeah, it is. It's really hard because it's almost like your body shuts down. You're like, oh God, I don't want to do this. Like, seriously, I don't want to play anymore. Make the big man stop. Seriously, I've had enough, right? You know what I mean? When you get really, really frightened. Well, the problem was this is what I was feeling on a day-to-day basis. And this sucked. Like, seriously, I hated this feeling. And not only that, I hated the way people looked at me because, look, this fear is not something that I could hide. You know what I mean? Like, it was on my face. When the families would say, hey, listen, let's go to the, the fall fair or whatever. And I'd go, ooh, fall fair? Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let me just grab my jacket here. And you know what? Everybody in the house is like, Dad doesn't want to go. Like, seriously. And you know what? That can be a bit of a downer, and I absolutely hate that. So look, guys, I'm not just telling you here to get rid of fear because that's a stupid statement. I'm sorry, you just can't. Go up to somebody who's shit scared and say, hey, stop being scared. Well, you can't, right? So what I want to do is I want to go at this from a different angle. Yeah. A very, very smart man once said, look, you either use fear or fear's going to use you. And when I heard this was such an unbelievable game changer for me. Because it's true. Look, when you find yourself in a massive, massive amount of fear, look, the thing is that fear is either going to use you, okay, and keep you afraid, or you're going to use that fear to get out of the situation. Let me explain what I'm talking about here, okay? Look, when I found myself in the absolute thralls of PTSD, depression, anxiety, I'm talking when times were really, really bad. Look, way before this whole PTSD bunker gear for your brain, got a life and all that stuff. This is me just walking around the house not knowing what the hell was going on with me. Look, this was a awful, awful feeling. Not only that, I'm off work. Okay, look, I haven't been out of work since I was 16. Like, seriously, I have worked the entire time, and now I'm not working. So the thing is I'm in my house, okay? I'm away from work. You know, God knows the stories that are going on about me at work and why Carl's off at this point. So you can only imagine what my own head is doing to myself, right? Like, every friend that I have in the world works at the fire department, and now I've just vanished. So you can imagine what that does to a person's self-esteem. You know what I'm getting at, right? So the thing is here I am, you know, walking around the house, and I'm scared. You know, let's just dumb it down here. I'm frightened. I don't know what's going on with my life, okay? You know, we can break it down as much as we want to. Oh, okay, well, this is PTSD, and this is anxiety, and this is, you know, this is depression that's doing this. But look, bottom line, I'm scared. Okay, I can't function the way I want to function. Okay, the thing is, I'm starting to notice that my family members are starting to look at me a little different. Not their fault, but come on, let's be honest. If somebody doesn't go to work anymore and is never leaving the house, do you really have to know what's wrong with them? You'll make something up. Like, seriously, you will. So the thing is that, look, I couldn't stand the way my kids were looking at me. And look, it's not their fault. I'm not blaming them, but it was that look of pity. You know what I mean? And I hated that. Oh, I hated that so much. Look, I know we're all supposed to ask for help. That's fine. But look, if it's okay with you, look, I've got the mentality that, look, I'm the dad. Okay? And you know what? If you've got a problem, you come to me. Now, look, I know that may be wrong. Okay, that's fine. But that is the mentality I have. So when you see your children looking at you with that sense of pity, dude, this drove me nuts. Because as far as I was concerned, I was the one that was supposed to stand up in hard times, not the one that hid behind the couch, right? So the thing was this really brewed with me, okay? Look, forget PTSD, depression, anxiety. I didn't like the way my family was looking at me, right? I wasn't angry at them, but I just hated being in this fearful state all the time. So look, this is a really, really shitty situation to be in. But what I understood was staying here was shittier. Yeah, like I actually hit that point where I realized that, okay, look, as frightened as I am of whatever it is I'm frightened of, I don't even know. I'll tell you what, I'm more afraid of spending the rest of my life like this. So it's that exact moment where you use that fear to overcome other fears. And guys, this is exactly what I did. Okay? Look, was I fearful of going outside and hanging out in crowds? Yeah, you bet your ass I was. I didn't like it. I didn't like the feeling of people walking behind me. I didn't like the fact that I didn't know what was going on. All these messages were being sent to my head, but I'll tell you what, I was a hell of a lot more scared of staying in the house for the rest of my life and my kids looking at me like, oh, poor dad, he's broken. Yeah, that frightened the shit out of me 10 times more. So even though this is an incredibly uncomfortable situation to be in, guys, it's a surefire way to get out of it. Yeah, seriously. Because the thing is that, okay, you can be afraid of the situations you're in, but I'll tell you what, if you take that fear and you turn it around and you go, holy shit, you know what? I'm more afraid of staying like this for the rest of my life than I am the fear that I feel right now. Guys, that's when we start pushing against it. Okay? And you know, here's the really interesting thing about fear, okay? And let me just leave this with you because, guys, this is really important too. You have to understand something, that on the other side of whatever you're afraid of, that's the person you want to be. Think about this for a second. Think about any fear that you have. What if you could eliminate it and not only that, excel at it? Let's take public speaking. Apparently that's like the #1 fear on the planet, even over death. Isn't that crazy? But what if you were terrified of public speaking, but you got asked to do a 45-minute speech? And not only that, you prepared yourself and you got ready. And yeah, you were scared about going up on stage and talking to people, but I'll tell you what, you were more scared of bombing the message that you were trying to give. So you worked hard and you worked hard. And then all of a sudden you get up there and you overcome that fear of public speaking. And dude, you rock it for 45 minutes. It's a standing O at the end of it. What is your life like after that? It's incredible. Okay, because when you defeat that fear, you know what your mind does? It starts looking around for what else you're afraid of. Yeah, it does. And it's like, hold on a second. I'm afraid of that. Well, let me just have a second look at that. I don't know how afraid I am of it. So all of a sudden now, guys, we are using the fear of being afraid against fear. It's a brilliant concept. It's not an easy concept. It's actually quite difficult to do. But I'll tell you what, if you can master it, if you can understand how to push through this fear, guys, there's nothing stopping you. And you know, once you start pushing through these fears, this is when you can start recognizing real fears again. Yeah, like I'm not saying that, okay, you push through the fear of public speaking, or you push through the fear of going out in crowds, and then all of a sudden you start swimming with great white sharks. No, I'm not saying that. The fact is that you start to recognize the real fears now. You know, the fears that, yeah, okay, you know what? You don't want to walk across a tight wire rope between two high-rise buildings. That is frightening. You could actually die. But you start to realize that, okay, well, maybe, okay, those kind of fears are good to keep, but this fear of going out with my family to the mall? No, I think I can go up against that. Yeah. And you know, the motivation that I'm going to use is the fear of never being able to do it again. Guys, when you start looking at it that way, you really start to get the oomph to go through it. Because look, I know the brain is trying to stop you. And please, look, you have to understand this entire week, I'm not poo-pooing the brain here, okay? But what I am saying is when PTSD, depression, anxiety kind of gets in the wiring a little bit, well, it can mess up the messages. And if we don't understand how it's messing up the messages, well, why would we ever fight back? Seriously. You know, I take the scenario once again of the shark in the water. Look, you'd be an idiot to turn around and swim towards the shark. Okay, that's the time that you want to seriously listen to fear, because it's there for a reason. But guys, when we're starting to notice things in our lives that, okay, look, I shouldn't be afraid of that, guys, that's when we can start pushing back against it. You know what I mean? And once you start doing that, like I said, overcome a couple of things. That's all you have to do. There is nothing more empowering than overcoming something that you didn't think you could overcome. The second that you do that, it's like you get this shot of life in you. Yeah. Instead of just taking all the messages from the brain and listening to it as gospel, now what I want you to do, guys, is seriously think about it. Like, think about it. Is this something that we should be afraid of? Look, I understand it falls under the parameters of PTSD, depression, anxiety. And like I said, guys, if you stayed afraid for the rest of your life, society would never, ever question you. Seriously. If you've got PTSD, depression, anxiety, and you stay with PTSD, depression, anxiety for the rest of your life, trust me, nobody's going to hate on you. No, they're just going to say, well, that's unfortunate that they have to live with that. The thing is that you have to decide you don't want to. Right? You have to get to that point where you go, look, I don't give a shit if this is curable or not. I'm going to throw everything I've got at it because I want that life back. Yeah. I'm more afraid of losing the life I had than I am staying in the one I'm in. And once you get that, guys, it can really, really pull you out of it. So, oh my word, look at the time. Guys, listen, I've strung this one out a little bit longer because, guys, I think this New Year's resolution and understanding how the brain works, if you understand this and you know how this works, guys, I'm not saying it's any easier, but what I am saying is, well, you know, you're on the right path. You know what I mean? Like, even though it's a hard road, the fact is you know you're heading in the right direction. And when you know that you're heading in the right direction, guys, you're less likely to quit. And I'll tell you, if you don't quit, well, eventually you have to win. Yeah, that's the way it works. As long as you don't quit, guys, you are eventually going to win. Please don't ever forget that. I don't care what anybody or any brain says to you. You want something bad enough, eventually the human will step up and you'll get it. It's a beautiful system when you really look at it. So guys, if you happen to get a chance to stop by our Facebook Live show, I would highly recommend it. I think this is the week that you should do it. Yeah, because talking about this brain and getting an open dialogue about it, guys, it's so beneficial to people when you really don't understand the fight that you're in. And guys, this is why I do the Facebook Live. So you know what? We can jump in the comment section after and, you know, open up a bit of a dialogue. And guys, as I say at the end of every podcast, look, if you are struggling with this stuff and you don't want to tell anybody about it, guys, I got a free support group on Facebook. It's called The Bunk Room. Real casual, like, absolutely. I'll tell you what, you send me a friendship request to Carl Waggett, I'll send you an invitation to The Bunk Room. Easy peasy. So guys, as I say, look, fear is there for a reason. I'm not saying for a second you should never listen to it. Of course you should listen to it. I mean, it's programmed into us to keep us alive. But guys, listen, you really kind of have to understand when the brain is, well, for lack of a better term, a little confused and has got you, its host, all hunkered down and you know, doesn't want to go out there. In situations like this, guys, this is when we really have to assess fear and then start using it. Because I'll tell you what, when you use this fear, this is when incredible doors open. Anyways, guys, listen, if you happen to get a chance, get your running shoes on, get yourself out there for a nice walk. It'll do your soul the world of good. You guys take care now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the PTSD Bunker Gear for Your Brain podcast. Gain more knowledge by going to ptsdbunkergearforyourbrain.com. While you're there, subscribe and comment. Join us next time for the PTSD Bunker Gear for Your Brain podcast.